I've been very impressed by this Protoss player right here. Playing with the red Protoss Props from Germany. We're looking inside of the main base of Showtime. His opponent down in the bottom right with the blue Zerg pieces already mining out the golden mineral fields. We have none other than SHIN. I haven't actually casted that many SHIN games as of late, but I'm a big fan. He's always, well, maybe not up to like the craziness of, for example, a Dark, but there's no denying that he certainly has a little bit of that playstyle in him. And Showtime is very good, right? In general, he's very good at playing against this sort of style, but it's still the type of thing that can easily catch you off guard. Now, I've got myself a large cup of coffee. I've heard that this particular series is a bit of a banger, so I'm gonna find out together exactly what ended up going down, but it's important not to let my coffee go cold, okay? Usually whenever I'm casting games, I end up with cold coffee, which I will still drink out of shame, mostly. But I will try to not let my coffee go cold this time around. Anyway, Showtime is scouting, and he will see that indeed this very quick golden base has been produced. He could go for a forge. Nah, we're not dealing with any of that. If it was Hero playing, we may have seen a forge as a reaction, but it just makes the entire game so crazy. So I think Showtime is basically just accepting the fact that the opponent already has that golden base up, and we're even gonna see a drone transfer. So SHIN looks like he's already pre-split the workers too. 3 of them go to the right side mineral fields. Oh, they're even rallied to their individual places, it looks like, on the left at least. Yeah, now you guys are all a little early. Yeah, nice control there. Pool is going to finish up right now. Looks like Showtime is busy, trying to be a little bit of a jerk inside of the main base. Make up for some of that mineral loss, and look at that, he even is gonna bring home a little trophy. 5 minerals stolen from the opponent, the most delicious minerals to return. I'm assuming we have to go Stargate here. Yeah. It is the go-to in this particular matchup, and in this sort of, well, setup, it also just makes a lot of sense. Oracles could just arrive so freaking quick, and you could even go into, like, Tempest if you wanted to. You could even go into whatever, really. I don't even think a Void Ray would be a bad call here, but it is Showtime, so I'm expecting a more conservative approach, and therefore it will probably be good old Oracles. And Oracles right now are better than ever because of the energy recharge ability. You can get the, well, energy quite literally to never run out. You can actually have the Oracle shoot the entirety of the game, which is not bad. Already though, SHIN has got a nice income boost. I mean, Showtime's work account is looking very healthy because he's been chrono boosting them all the way through. But the golden minerals do give you a very significant amount of additional income. The question is always, is it worth it? Brenda! Okay, jeez. Brenda decided to attack the base for just a little bit. What about this, though? Not bad. Yeah, 2 drones, but it looks like the adepts are going to go down as well. Okay. Not quite ideal there. I mean, 2 drones for 2 adepts is not enough for my liking. Not the end of the world. What about this? There are 2 queens available, no spore crawler. I find that a little overly greedy. Yeah, 5 drones in total right now. 3 of them, of course, from this Oracle, 2 from those adepts. 3rd Nexus already does get planted down. It'll be difficult to hold on to it, but the Oracle is gonna return back. Another Oracle coming up. That one is going to be sealing the deal right now as far as the 3rd base's safety goes. Now, one often overlooked advantage for going for a proxy hatchery like this is that you can start the creep spread very close to your opponent's base. And that is something worth noting, because any attack will just arrive a little bit sooner. So we have a creep tumor going backwards and a creep tumor is going forward. Wouldn't mind seeing those move a little bit more frequently here, SHIN, but maybe he's actually doing it on purpose. Sometimes it's better to just have that active option available if you need it. He is spreading it now. Just a little bit delayed, probably missed at least 1 round there, but not the end of the world, as long as the bases are eventually connected before Protoss goes for a big attack. Lair is coming up, though. It's about a quarter of the way done already. Blink together with the +1. Oracles do get a couple of kills over here too, but not the end of the world. What about the Adepts? Okay, good bit of damage here. Yeah, as the numbers are starting to add up now, like all of this is dealing a bit too much damage. Showtime is taking a lot of heavy losses too. 14 drones is certainly not bad though for 7 Adepts. Adepts tend to fall off the longer that the game goes on anyway. And it looks like we are just gonna be making a transition here towards High Templar and Storm eventually. The ball is now very much so in Shin's court. What does he decide to do from here? He's actually not really playing an aggressive timing attack off of this at all. Usually when we see the gold base taken early, it's because Zergs want to be using the gold base's income advantage to hit a timing attack that's even more dangerous. But it looks like maybe it's because of all of the losses. Shin has decided to deviate it away from that. Just goes into the 4th hatchery here. And he's happy to just play the macro game, it looks like. I think that will suit Showtime just fine. There's that beloved Storm upgrade, researching once again. Although apparently against Terran, Showtime is not necessarily sold on that research. Either way, Evo Chamber. I mean, this is... Why are we building the Evo over here, Shin? This is still the middle of the map. Completely unnecessary to be building it up over here because it's quite exposed, but apparently he believes he now dominates this side of the map and he may actually be onto something. I highly doubt Showtime will ever be thinking about taking this base, at least not anytime soon. I would imagine this one, the one over here, even the one right over here will probably all take higher priority. Oh, Oracle does eventually fall. But quite a bit of damage was done. That looks like we're done with workers at 69. That's pretty nice right here for Showtime. Got himself a good economy going. Constantly using the energy recharge from the Nexus onto those High Templar too. They're going to be having plenty of energy for plenty of storms. Where exactly do we take this game from here though? That is of course always the question. Where do you go from here now? Usually, Zergs need to be the aggressor. Usually it's the Zerg players that need to try and get something done at this phase in the game. Because the longer that things go on, the more likely SkyToss becomes. And SkyToss is usually something that, well, Protoss players are very fond of and Zerg players are trying to avoid. Looks like he's trying to break open the natural expansion right now with the golden minerals in the back door. Not quite achieving the whole thing, but ooh. 9 Dropper Lords coming up. Okay. Shin has chosen his strategy. We are going dropping. How fun. I mean, he made an ambitious amount of overlords. Got a little carried away with the amount that he needed there for that amount of Hydralisks. To be fair, as a Protoss, you can't see which of them is full and which of them is empty. Some Zerglings right now also decided to take those final seats. The drop will be arriving, though, in just a moment. There is one stasis ward, a small group of Stalkers. Stalkers actually get pulled away right now. Shin trying to see if maybe he can get, like, some double-pronged damage down as well, right? So if he can hit the Banelings over at the 3rd, that could do a lot of damage. But what about the drop? This is a gigantic problem that Showtime needs to address pretty much immediately. Dropping onto a stasis ward as well. We actually got quite lucky with the amount of units that were still caught in there. High Templar, High Templar, High Templar does get a storm off before going down. Banelings, ooh, caught in a stasis ward over at that 3rd base too. The crisis management here from Showtime is not terrible, but I don't really love the position that he's in. Yeah, the storms are good, but we need more of an army in front of this as well to really bring it all home. In the meantime, the Banelings have woken up! Ugh. It's an absolute disaster. There is a counterattack with Zealots, at least attempted, but it looks like the reinforcing units from the Zerg have dealt with that as well. Pylons are targeted down here by Shin. And so far, Shin is making this game look easy. He's taken so much damage early on. It was by no means the cleanest early game defense. But he was left to do his own thing for a little bit too long. And that is something that Showtime, if I can be so critical, oftentimes does, where he just sort of gives his opponent a lot of freedom. And it can certainly work, but if you go up against something that you didn't quite expect, right? Like, nobody really goes for a 9 Overlord drop as Zerg. It can be just like one of those things that you rarely play against, and that's the type of stuff that's super dangerous. Good old Hydraling Bane. It's just pure Hydraling Bane. Prism goes down, and with it, GG is called. It's SHIN who obtains the victory in game number 1. Game number 2. We find ourselves on Tokamak. It's once more a Stargate opener here from Showtime. No gold base for SHIN to take, but there was an early probe scout that blocked his natural expansion, so he's been forced to take it over at the 3rd base instead. Now, the first Oracle, or the first Adept rather, is going to go across the map, soon followed by the first Oracle, I'm sure. Brenda was already in position. Shaded straight into the arms, the many arms, I should say, of Brenda. She had loads of them. She has 1 arm with fingers, or 2 arms with fingers on them as well. Is that crazy? I guess the others are just talons. Anyways, scouting worker was still chased down. Zergling will now confirm that it indeed is going to be a Stargate opener. But honestly, against Showtime, you really don't expect anything crazy, right? You still always want to be scouting just on the off chance that he is going for something maybe a little bit out of character. But even if you don't scout, I think you can do a reasonable job predicting what Showtime would be going for. Adepts in the main base, though, try to see if they can kill a bunch of these units, and he gets 2 drones. Yeah. Oh. I find 2 drones for 2 adepts, always kind of shaky. Because now taking the 3rd becomes kind of difficult, because you need to keep that Oracle at home. And if the Oracle is home, obviously Zork is just droning up, and they're not really getting slowed down at all. Phoenix on the back of this, though. I'm assuming that'll be just for the Overlord killing. Yeah. Your task is to kill Overlords. You get to pop balloons. Please get to it. Excuse me. Okay. The Phoenix pilot was blind right there for a little bit, but the radar system apparently is still going to be good enough to detect where the Overlords are located. And there's another one as well on the back of the main base. How many Oracles do we produce in total from here? It's just going to be the 2, it seems. 2 Oracles, 1 Phoenix. A little bit odd, a little bit uncommon, but if you can guarantee like 2 kills with the Phoenix, I don't mind it all too much. Just using it right now as a spotter unit, and somehow, some way, this OV over here has gotten away. Twilight Council together with a Forge. Extra Gateway also coming up. Testing the waters right now with some of those Adepts that were used for the 3rd base's defense. They're gonna shade straight into the main base. The drones actually decide to, take matters into their own hands. Stasis ward was planted down as well, and honestly, those drones, only 3 of them died? 3 drones died, but, well, I think 4 additional Adepts also died there. It's not the end of the world here for SHIN whatsoever. I like this start better than the one that he had in the previous game. And that match, of course, ended up, well, in a win. Blink together with the +1, though. Coming up right here for Showtime. He's now committing. Keep in mind that the Phoenix can still lift up the Queen. Yep. That's where it's so good. 3 drones, but he'll be back for more in a moment. Templar Archives again. Okay, and only just now is when the lair starts up for SHIN. So we're nearly 6 minutes in, and that's when the lair begins. Super duper late. No Roach Warren, no Baneling Nest. A pretty late +1 melee upgrade too. We have a 4th base added into the mix. If he would go up against like a Glaive Adept push right now, I think he would be in a world of trouble. Maybe playing a little bit against, that image that Showtime has as well, right? As somebody that doesn't really go for those sorts of attacks. It makes SHIN a little bit greedy, especially when you're leading the series 1-0. You have a little bit of wiggle room. You wouldn't really do this if you're 1-0 behind. You wouldn't really skip out on a Roach Warren at that point. Ooh. We don't yet have Storm done, even though the High Templar is full energy. The Zerglings do commit, but it's before +1 melee. But again, it was mostly just to bring those Oracles back home and to trade out whatever is possible. Ooh, Spire. Really? So we're going mute on Ling? Instant scout. Woo. Beautiful scout right there, actually, from Showtime. Now, as a reaction, we also have an instant follow-up right now of a Hydralisk Den. So I wonder if we're going to cancel it? Twilight Council. Or, sorry, Infestation Pit. Hydra Den. And then also a Spire. SHIN is building everything except a Roachborn and a Baneling Nest, which would be the norm. Like, either of the two would at least be useful. He's getting all the lair tech. If Showtime goes for a sharp timing attack, I think it will be very difficult here for SHIN to hold on, but we'll have to see what he does. He does, of course, have that 4th base nice and quickly. All of those corners cut just allow him more economy at this stage in the game, and especially those gases are going to be quite interesting. So he's going Hive, 11 Hydralisks, but I think we're also making Mutas. Are we not? Maybe he's just keeping the Spire in case it's like a SkyToss follow-up? But a just-in-case Spire this early on feels kind of nutty. He is going for a Lurker Den too. The Spire is a little bit weird to me. We'll have to keep an eye out on what exactly he decides to go for there. Zerglings, though, trying to see if they can go across the map. This is a scary attack, though. Storm is available. And so is Charge. There should be plenty of warp-ins. 10 gates in total is not bad. Showtime, I think you can go. Showtime is not convinced, though, that that is the case. Obviously, he's not in a particularly great spot in this series, so maybe playing it conservatively is the right call, but wow. I'm surprised he actually decided to just fake that move out. Must have been intentional all along, because he didn't really see too much that should have deflected him from that spot, but I mean, he would have been able to hit before Lurkers are out. Now the Lurkers are going to be done, however. Ranged comes up as well for the Lurkers, and so is the +1 air weapons. Static defense already growing here for Showtime, who needs to try and leapfrog his way to like a 5th base here in a moment. Keep some of the defense behind, but move the majority of it to the front. This would be the most likely candidate for a 5th. Alternatively, right over here. Zella drop now in the meantime inside of the main. Zella drop is not really achieving too much, but it is going to buy some time, right? And he will see all of the tech now available here to the Zerg. Instantly upon seeing it, he decides to go Fleet Beacon and a 2nd Stargate. Lurker Den did run dangerously low, but as long as it finishes up its upgrades eventually, shouldn't be a problem. Adrenal Gland starts up too? Okay. My question is now mostly when Showtime is going to take a 5th. It seems like he's comfortable just sitting on 4 bases, but you can't really reliably sit on this for too much longer. 10 minutes into the game, your main is going to start running low. Your natural is not even going to be too far behind it either. No Nidus Worm or whatever available, though. And we are now arriving at the stage that a lot of Zerg players try to avoid in this particular matchup. Greater Spire coming up. Okay. Most Zerg players don't like playing SkyToss or against SkyToss in the current meta of StarCraft 2. Most everybody except Serral, who has a very good winning record against SkyToss, but even he seems to be quite mortal against it. Either way, Showtime has arrived where he wanted to go. The road there was a little bit bumpy, but he's made it there. Likewise, though, Showtime could have gone up against the Zerg that did a lot more attacks. I really think SHIN had multiple attacking opportunities, too, that could have been extremely dangerous. But not bad thus far. One thing, actually, that Showtime is doing very cleverly here, and that is something that a lot of the Protoss players have been doing lately, is delay the timing of the 5th. So, very frequently, as we see a Nidus Worm going up inside of the main base, Protoss players will sit on 5 bases for a while, right? And they will have 5 bases up, and Zergs will go for those attacks towards the 5th. But if there is no 5th to attack, then... I mean, that was the 5th just now going down. If there is no 5th base to attack, then I guess Zergs won't really be too aggressive either, and then you can just go straight into the SkyToss transition. It's just a safer way of eventually getting up there. Okay. Mama is joining the battlefield here in just a moment. The static defense numbers are growing. We already have 9 photon cannons out. 5 more of them are just about to join in. He's gonna need a lot of it, though, over here in the top left-hand corner, too, just to try and stay alive. Nidus Worm in the top left is also gonna try and make short work of it. Showtime, though, does not quite have vision of it. Viper's coming up. Okay, looks like SHIN just wants to play a straight-up game against straight-up SkyToss. Place your bets. Do you think it'll go well? Lurkers decide to pop back into the worm, using the worm right now as a retreat. This is, of course, Showtime's best strategy, right? Like, this is something that Showtime has been extremely good at for years, and the way he has been winning a lot of games. So I find, like, you have to be quite brave to play into that style. Obviously, SHIN has a little bit of wiggle room. Already a lot of static defense as well, by the way, on the side of the Zerg. We're talking 16 Spore Crawlers with more of them on the production tab. Nidus Worms are going down left, right, and center, though, and it's becoming a bit of an issue. Oh, good abductions here. Lovely abductions, actually. Trying to get those Tempests within range of not just the Spores, but also the Corruptors. Good micro here by SHIN as he backs up once again. Nidus Worm, in the meantime, does get shut down. Another Nidus Worm, though, in the natural. Showtime can never comfortably max out. If he maxes out, Nidus Worms are gonna pop up. He needs to make sure that he keeps on having at least some supply available of army at home, just to play the whack-a-mole with, right? If you're completely maxed here, that is a bit of a problem. So far, though, I don't think we have really had a single Nidus do anything. I mean, 6 of them have died. They're by no means free. Make it 7. SHIN's economy, though, is looking pretty nice, right? He's got a whole lot of units. He's building up, slowly but surely, the static defense count, so he doesn't really have that many drones, but it's mostly because he's made, like, 20-plus Spore Crawlers already. Some of them have died, but he's adding on a ton of Spines and Spores. Effectively, he's making a forest. A forest of the Zerg. This used to be a common approach back in the day. I don't know if some of you remember, but, like, there used to be a time when Zergs would go like 50-plus Spore Crawlers in a game. It looks like so far, though, Showtime is fighting fire with fire, as he is also thinking about making 50 photon cannons of his own. We're talking 22 at the moment, with 6 more on the production tab. Who can build more static defense? Cloak gets activated. The Corruptor numbers are not bad, but it's not that many. Hydra's here still available too. Might be time to start switching those out for something that has a little bit more, well, firepower, I suppose. There we go. 7 Infestors, not a bad idea. Immortal production also kicked in over Showtime, which is a little curious. Usually you mostly do this against a potential transition towards Ultralisks. Still not a terrible choice, though, against Lurkers, but I think one of the main concerns becomes Neural Parasite. It has been researched. Nidus Worm finally goes up and actually gets something done. Very conservative, though, across the board. Again, as soon as he sees the recall, he's once more out of there. I'm a little surprised that this base hasn't been remade already. Seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Quite a passive game. Compared to the matches we've been seeing lately in this matchup, this has actually been quite a passive game across the board. I mean, SHIN is trying to get some action in. Showtime is going to solve this problem too with photon cannons. To a man with a forge, every problem can be dealt with photon cannons. Don't give him a hammer. If Showtime has a hammer, dude, he's gonna be... It's a problem. Double upgrades, by the way, and double cybernetic scores, too. Lurkers have now finally found a bit of an opening, but this army here from the Protoss needs to be respected. And again, SHIN immediately slips out. What about the fight over here on the right? Nope, static defense taking care of that as well. These guys aren't even playing a 1v1 match anymore, man. They're basically playing an arcade map right now. Half of the StarCraft 2 arcade maps are tower defense maps. That's effectively what these guys are playing. Except they also have an army and an economy and all that to manage. I love tower defense maps. I don't play them that much anymore these days, but I have fond memories of LAN parties when I was younger. Especially Warcraft 3 tower defense. All of those little changelings are going to be dealt with. There's in the meantime also a little dance happening on the left side of the map. Effectively though, where we are arriving right now, right? So the goal here for Showtime is to mine 50% of the map. Zerg rarely trades cost efficiently, so strategically speaking, he's trying to see if he can mine 50% of the map. Now, it's 50% of the map minus one base each. So currently, everything's going according to plan. Showtime will be taking that base, but SHIN doesn't even have the mirrored location yet on the other side of the map. So far, I'm really liking this position here for Showtime. Like, yes, it's extremely passive, all things considered, but strategically, it is the correct choice. The ball is very much so in Showtime's court, or sorry, in SHIN's court here, rather than Showtime's, to try and get the job done. Look, SHIN is even going to be losing this base over here too. Now suddenly, Showtime doesn't just have like his half of the map, he's got his half of the map and then two more compared to the opponent, right? So SHIN really needs to get a move on, even though he's got a lot of resources in the bank. If he plays it out like this, he is likely gonna get macroed to death. The more static defense goes down, the harder it'll be. Now, maybe that's why we've gone for the Greater Spire, and there are already Brute Lords. These are units that are capable of knocking down the static defense very rapidly. They have the +3 air attacks as well, so they definitely hit extremely hard. SHIN, by the way, mostly stopped at about 20-something Spore Crawlers. Showtime is rapidly approaching 50 photon cannons. That's crazy. This is an extremely slow suffocation. That's what it feels like to me. Now, I don't know the outcome of this game, but to somebody that's played a lot of StarCraft over the years, this feels like a slow suffocation of the Zerg. It's a bit odd, because Showtime is not richer at the moment than SHIN is. SHIN is still fully maxed, and he's got so many resources in the bank, but we've seen a lot of games historically where, slowly but surely, Protoss will just keep on taking better trades. It's up to SHIN to try and get something done here, and this may just be exactly what he's looking for. It's a banger of an army, by the way. Like, this army here from Zerg is extremely powerful. Super difficult to control, but it deals so much damage. What about the push over here on the left? Okay. Showtime saying, yo, you take one of my bases, I will take one of yours. The math will still work out, and would you look at that? Right next door, this is again one of the bases that normally is the Zerg's. Showtime is out macroing a Zerg player here. Like, he's actually starting to get more resources. Now, it's kind of like a Terran player dropping all of their money on, like, command centers here. It's not really reflected in the resource counts just yet, but at some point, Showtime will probably say enough is enough. I don't know when that's going to be, but at some point you have enough photon cannons. We're now going up to about 60 of those bad boys. At some point, enough is enough, and that's when the cash starts rolling in. It's a delicate unit composition, though, for both players to micro. This is an easy 4 control group type of army for SHIN. Likewise as well, if Showtime wants to optimize this army, it takes a similar amount. And he still has all of these units too. Like, it might be time to sort of switch out of those. Ooh, okay. Yeah, he's being a little overly aggressive. I was gonna say, you probably don't want to donate them either. Decides to recall them towards the mothership. It is, by the way, possible you'd, like, make too many photon cannons. Like, look at Showtime. He's adding on 8 additional gateways. Bro is just building infrastructure right now. He's going shopping. He's like a lottery winner right now. You hear stories of lottery winners all the time, right? That are, like, broke again after 2 years, even though they made, like, $100 million or whatever. It's like, bro, how do you do that? This is one of those situations for Protoss, though. Still, the micro is nice. The storms are real good. Fungal growth there doesn't really achieve much. And this is when those photon cannons can pop so rapidly. Nice feedback as well, though, on that Viper. But it's difficult for Protoss to really get a good engagement going, right? Okay, the Tempest, though, from the maximum range, because of the Revelation ability, they can actually use their max range available. Okay, there you go. They can actually use it to shoot down a lot of those units. In the meantime, again, this little hit squad of units on the left being extremely annoying. Still, look, let's count bases, okay? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here for Zerg versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for the Protoss. SHIN has a stupid amount of resources in the bank, but he needs to do something with it sooner rather than later. Some of his blue mineral fields are gonna get crushed here by those collapsible rocks, but he is striking back right now on the left side of the map, and he's also moving in right over here on the right. Good fungal growth. Storms do go down, though. Feedbacks as well. Time Warp gets dropped. We have all of the Archons underneath. A lot of the Corruptors are working away. Not really target firing down much of anything, but Showtime's army does get deleted off of the map. That was a dangerous setup. Immediate remax, though. Immediate remax here by Showtime. He's got 20 gateways. 20 gateways and 4 Stargates immediately reproducing. SHIN somehow, some way needed to remake a whole lot of Overlords. Hitting a bit of a supply block. Needs to spend some of his cash on exactly that. Okay. That was a good fight for SHIN, though. SHIN wiping that Protoss army off the map. I mean, he took a bigger nosedive here, but considering his bank, I think it's exactly what he needs to do. He needs to get a move on, though. Don't give Protoss too much time here to breathe either. It's not like Showtime is particularly rich, but I really, really love this. This move over here on the left is killer. SHIN really wants to sit home and, like, defend against these sort of pushes. But now, I mean, with Showtime losing a base over here on the right, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And honestly, I don't know if he's really gonna be losing another base. A lot of the Zerg army needs to now retreat back home. Showtime is playing this out masterfully. New mothership, by the way, is gonna come up. Big Zealot warp in as well. Looks like the Nexus will fall. Really not that much mining. Honestly, I feel like losing the Nexus here is probably like the least important thing to lose. You can just rebuild it. A lot of the static defense is still there. Okay. There she is. The second mama. Tempest still dealing with some of the drones here as well. Showtime has so much gas in the bank. I feel like the gas is just showing you how much static defense he actually produced. Showtime actually purposely not adding on too many high-tech units here either. Oh, he just sniped some of his own units there. More static defense! With the army moving on the left, though, it might be the cue that Showtime should be moving in as well towards the right. Not enough here to really contest with this many lurkers, but he's afraid of the warp-ins. More of them will be coming up. In the meantime, Nidus network all the way on the far right. Protoss army slowly remaxed out. One pylon. I think the Nexus is not going to be too far behind. What about the reinforcing troops, though? It looks like actually the reinforcing troops are the entirety of the army. Full body blocking as well with those Stalkers blinking behind the Lurkers. Brilliant move right there by Showtime. Made it impossible for that entire Zerg army to retreat. Now is the cue apparently that the Brute Lords needed to try and move in, but Brute Lords are slow. They can't sit in the Nidus Worm. Corruptors will try to make their way back home, but Showtime is thinking about breaking not just the third, but also the natural expansion. He doesn't want to overstay his welcome, though. Decides to leave the Zealots behind. Moves back with his main army. Showtime is so good at not tunnel visioning. I feel like that's a problem that most StarCraft players have, where, like, we get this bloodlust, where it's like, oh, I killed one base, I'm gonna kill another one. And then you find yourself stuck in the corner. Showtime always seems to be very good at, like, mentally zooming out and looking at the big picture. I would have doubled down right there as Protoss, for sure. I would have been stuck in the main base. You can always recall, right? Anyways, maybe that's why Showtime is good in the game, and, you know, I cast. Either way, SHIN's bank has rapidly depleted. Like, he still has a lot of minerals, but barely any gas. Showtime has gas for days. Lurkers once more moving in, but these Lurkers are starting to become very precious. Looks like we are going to recall the troops, though, and that means that once more, the Brute Lords can move in to maybe snipe some of the static defense. I'm loving the way that Showtime is playing this. Basically, no notes. Sure, in isolation, we can look at some of the fights and, yeah, maybe criticize individual plays like that, but strategically, this is extremely well done. It's not in the bag yet, though. It's an extremely big Zerg army, and the Zerg now has killed a lot of bases. This is going to be Nexus number 4 going down. Again, this small mobile hit squad of units, though, is really scary. Hydras come flying in this direction. The Lurkers are looking very good in these sort of fights. Yep, and they're going to absolutely tear this army apart. Okay. Still, this base is so big. Whoa! A 20 High Templar warp in! I've never seen 20 High Templar get warped in at the same time. That's crazy. That's so much money. It makes sense, though, because Archons are... I mean, he's got 7,000 gas. That's like a casual, like, what is it? Like 2,000 plus gas drop on one warp in? Oh, great time warp as well. Archons suddenly show up, and he is ready to now put all of his units together in one big bowl. This is what Protoss normally does, right? Huh. SHIN builds up a hatchery right next to a shield battery, left behind from the earlier fights. Whenever you have a very significant gas bank as Protoss, though, you can always build Archons, right? Rarely do you have a situation where Archons are bad. Although there is certainly an upper limit. I would say like more than like 10 becomes a little bit fishy. Yeah, 10 is exactly what he has right now. I think that's about right. Fungals, though? Fungals could be dangerous. Fungals right here with Brute Lords. Oh, beautiful fight right here for Showtime. Oh, for SHIN, rather. He needs to get units over here, and that's the rest of the Protoss army trying to make their slow crawl through the middle of the map. Already, though, SHIN is waiting. He knows that the army must be coming in from that angle very soon. I would love to see some units over here on the floor, right? Some changelings, maybe. Zerglings now also do swoop in. Lurkers have been set up, though. Showtime is going to try and see if he can collapse on top of it. Decides to use the Time Warp as an opportunity to now fight. Are there enough units available, though, for Showtime to actually get rid of the Corruptors? The Corruptors swoop in right now. Great splits right there, mitigating a lot of the splash damage. In the meantime, the Stalkers, they blink underneath all of the Brute Lords. It looks like the SkyToss army has disappeared, and some of the Brute Lords are still left over. Big warp-ins, though, immediately again for Showtime, who now also has fully spent his bank. He's got a lot of gas available, but gas alone is not going to do too much. He decides to once more chase down as many of those brutes as possible. Corruptors just dead weight up in the skies right now, not really doing much. But good micro right there by SHIN. Decides to fly the Brute Lords into the dead space between the bases, and that is going to give him an opportunity to potentially regen some HP and maybe finish off the Nexus as well. Showtime, though, immediately on the counter-offensive right now. What a beautiful engagement right here for Protoss. It really doesn't get much better than that. I think that was... I mean, the engagement was great for SHIN as well, but I think across the board, considering the stage that the game is in, it's better for for Showtime. Then again, though, what about the Zerglings? These are fully maxed out Lings. Can they actually get the job done? I did not expect that Zerglings were gonna be his next weapon of choice, but he needed to do something. SHIN now finding himself with a 30 supply lead, but very little mining. Likewise, Showtime, I mean, he has only about 30 workers remaining. He's still some mining happening there across the board. The problem here is that SHIN has so much supply caught up in those Corruptors, and the Corruptors are just not that useful. At least they're preventing a full SkyToss transition. Again, the Zerglings get a good surround. There's a lot of static defense available as well, though, here for Showtime. Backing up to the high ground here makes sense. Archons will have a difficult time really catching up to those brutes. I'm starting to get flashbacks of that classic versus Serral game that came down to one Brute Lord versus one Archon. Spoiler alert, the Archon turns out to be a better choice in that department. And again, it looks like the splash damage that those units provide is just so nice. Shindo using the terrain here to his advantage. A handful of Stalkers are getting warped in as well. Shin on his absolute last legs. The problem is all of those Corruptors up in the air. He's got 13 Corruptors just sort of doing nothing. There's too much static defense around to really use the caustic spray ability. 4 more Archons are being warped in somewhere. That gas bank is so good right now for Showtime. Yeah, Archons are kind of the perfect unit at this stage in the game. Brute Lords just can't really, well, win the game right now, even though they're technically outranging all of this. Oh, what an engagement. What a beautiful fight. Oracle comes up right now for Showtime. I think this is mostly just for the revelation ability, so he can tag where those brutes are located to make sure that he stays out of trouble. I really like how he's still keeping his head cool in this type of situation. Decides to knock down the rocks. It's Archons and High Templar now. That's basically the whole army. I think Shin should probably spend his money on just making as many of those Corruptors into brutes as possible. The problem is, he always needs to be concerned about a potential switch to, like, carriers here. Like, even carriers are terrifying. How in the world do you deal with carriers now? Well, this is where the caustic spray ability can be nice. Forces the cancel on some of those units. But as long as the Corruptors are up in the air, I think the SkyToss route is mostly closed. Well, I say that. Showtime decides to queue up 3 Tempests. As long as the Tempests are flying above Archons, I guess they can get the job done. 4 Tempests on the production tab. Showtime's army is better. When those 4 Tempests spawn, it is better. But there is still some... yeah, there's still some potential right here for Shin. He does have those Spore Crawlers from earlier, and Spore Crawlers put in a very significant amount of damage. You know the game is becoming desperate, though, when you're bringing the Overlords and the Spore Crawlers out to play. Obviously, they only deal damage when they're rooted, so he's bringing the Overlords to the front to drop a little bit of creep. He knows that it all comes down to whether or not Showtime can mine this expansion right over here. I love this. Super difficult for Showtime to see, right? The Overlords are obstructing a lot of vision. Keep in mind the game gets played with this zoom level, so there's not nearly as much as what we can actually look when I zoom out to the camera a little bit. Another council on another base. In the meantime, Shin has smashed his piggy bank and he's taking an expansion over here on the right. Showtime has seen it. Oracle reveals where that army is located, decides to idle for a little bit too long, but a few of the Corruptors get sniped in the process. What a beautiful game of StarCraft 2. It's Showtime who obtains the victory. Next up, Ultra Love. Final game in this best of 3 series. Shin invited Showtime to play the macro game. And Showtime greedily took the invitation. That was still extremely close. Honestly, with the way that the mid game was progressing, With the way that, like, Showtime was mining multiple bases more than his opponent, I thought that the victory would be more clear-cut than it ended up being. That was still an extremely close match. Showtime honestly won there on macro. The fights were not quite as good as they could have been, and the cost efficiency of his army was not quite what it could have been either, but he won just based off of the sheer amount of mining that he had done. Which is really cool. Stargate opener again, though, here for Showtime for now. We're a long ways off from playing a macro game here. I think it'll be up to SHIN to try and prevent that from happening. Honestly, I don't think that's what you want to do. But maybe he's got a different plan. The thing is, in the last game, he got away with that extreme greed, right? Like, he basically said, okay, you want to be greedy? I will try and be even greedier. He skipped so much tech, such a late lair. No Baneling Nest, no Roach Warren early, no nothing. So that was effectively like the best case scenario that SHIN could have hoped for to play a macro game with, and he didn't get punished for any of his greed. I mean, you can't really outgreed a Zerg as a Protoss. The way that the larva mechanic works just makes that pretty much impossible. Third base is gonna get started right here for Showtime. Not the fastest possible third Nexus by any stretch. Protoss usually likes to go for a bit of a quicker third these days, but Showtime decides to stay with the good old, and it's the safest approach. Showtime is very reliable, very safe in general with the way that he approaches the game. He's like the perfect son-in-law with his gameplay, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's solid, reliable, very little risk-taking, financially smart. That sort of thing. Perfect posture. Don't forget about the posture. This is the perfect son-in-law Protoss right here, okay? Maybe that's a better approach than D-Mauer, because he tends to be a little bit more aggressive these days than just the wall. Especially against Terran. He's not afraid. I've always wondered how much, like, your StarCraft gameplay actually, like, resembles your IRL person, you know? If you compare the absolute dirtiness of, for example, Dark or, like, a Hero or any of the crazy guys, do you think that's also reflecting in their personality and, like, the way they live life? I feel like Showtime would, even if he had all the money in the world, he would be like one of those billionaires that still drives the car that he bought when he was in, you know, when he was like 18 or whatever. He's like, okay, I still have this thing. It still works. Even though I could literally buy a Bugatti right now and I wouldn't blink an eye. It wouldn't matter. I still, it works. So why would I switch it out? I feel like Showtime would be that guy too. Anyways, the Oracles are now joining in with the Adepts on the other side of the map. Shindo did make a Roach Warren this time around. Decides to knock down the cooling tower over here too. Make it difficult for the Zerg to really get across. Hydra Den as well right now on the back of it. So SHIN playing this a bit more conservatively this time around. Blink, though, is going to finish up. It is going to give Showtime an opportunity to go across the map, but that would be taking a risk, you know? Do you really want to be taking a risk? I remember, you know, Parting. Parting used to do a lot of streaming. And Parting's streaming personality, at the very least, very similar to his in-game playstyle. At least that was a lot of overlap there. Parting streams were something beautiful. I don't know if he still streams. I don't think so. Blink, though. Trying to go behind all of it. Trying to keep all of these units around. And you know what? With this many stasis wards set up, suddenly the Blink push does become very safe. You can always run through the tunnel here. Be okay. This is dealing real damage now. SHIN actually needs to start dealing with this a little bit better, because He's running out of steam very rapidly. The Stalker micro here is excellent. Showtime sending in even more Stalkers now across the map. It's only off of 4 gateways. This really isn't meant to, like, win the game or whatever, but you know what? Sometimes if the damage is handed to you on a silver platter, you just take it. You even activate the oracles apparently onto the extractor. That's a misclick. He meant to go onto this, well, queens here, obviously. But that's 13 drones. 13 drones just like that, and it's not even over yet. Reinforcing Zerg units are showing up now. Oracles, though, have disappeared. 12 Stalkers only have died, by the way. 12 Stalkers, 15 drones, 21 Roaches and 2 Hydras, 5 Queens. I mean, that was some of the most cost-effective play you can have. The only problem, I guess, is that his camera had to be pinned on that fight, so he's a little bit late on the 4th Nexus, but he did go into everybody's favorite upgrade. Or at least every Protoss player's favorite upgrade. I can almost hear the Zerg players and Terran players right now starting to shake in their boots. It's not, I hate this upgrade. But the weather forecast is stormy. Showtime will be bringing the bad boys out. Look at these guys. They're too cool to look at the camera. Not this one. This one's nice. The others? Oof. They're powerful. Now, SHIN, one of the reasons he took so much damage is because he already had a lot of drones. So, as the dust has settled now, he is arriving at Hive Tech. It's at the light. It's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I mean, we're not quite there yet. He'll be secure when the Lurker ranged upgrade is done. That's when you can actually defend against Protoss quite nicely. Until that point, Showtime should have full map control. Immortal production, though, this time around. So we're not really transitioning towards, like, a SkyToss army here. Instead, it looks like we're doubling down on a ground-based force instead. I mean, it's 4 base versus 4 base now. There's the fleet beacon and the 2nd Stargate, okay. Probably the just in case. Ooh. Cuts off some of the Roaches here too, but maybe a little bit overly aggressive. Hydras in the meantime swoop in around the side. They get stormed to death though. Zealots are dealing a lot of damage here too. Absolute bloodbath, and it is gonna force Showtime to retreat for now. The timing here of the fleet beacon turns out to be pretty much perfect, because as we have the Lurker transition right now underway, Mama is going to be joining the battlefield too in a moment, and I'm assuming it'll be Tempest until that point. The more risk-taking Protoss would go straight into the mothership, but look, Showtime here, he's got his fundamentals right. The perfect son-in-law Protoss decides to go for the Tempest first, and then the mothership. Prism in the main base, mostly just as a distraction. Right now, this is when SHIN wants to strike. He knows that this is the moment when there's probably no SkyToss out just yet. Prism, though, is going to try and slow him down. Is Showtime going to do a warp in the main base? Maybe in a moment. For now, though, it'll be an army over here that he needs to deal with. We have a lot of units on hold position in the choke point, but they're going to get sniped pretty easily. The storm over here would be juicy, but no High Templar available to do exactly that. Prism in the main base in the meantime also dies. SHIN is trying to see if he can break through this. My main concern right now, though, is the amount of anti-air. There is just not a whole lot of anti-air available. Okay, he stormed his own observer right there to death, but with 4 of those Tempest out, the Roaches will fall pretty quickly. The Lurkers and reinforcing Hydras probably not too far behind. Worker losses have been kept to a minimum thus far, but SHIN does hit a very nice timing attack. He's gone for a Spire right now on the back of this as well. Yeah, it's time for the Zerg army to start retreating. Can he kill the Nexus? I think he can. Maybe? It's gonna be close, but he does get the job done. In the meantime, the Zerg army is cycling to the right. Showtime does see this coming in, but it takes a while for his units to get repositioned. SHIN decides to give up on the plan. This base is quite deep into the bases, right? I mean, you have to go quite far in order to, like, siege up your Lurkers there. Not quite ideal, especially when you know that the mothership can just drop a time warp on you and ruin your day. Okay. Now, though, the SkyToss transition is here, right? And Corruptors are going to be a necessity. SHIN does have 76 workers. That was by no means an all-in for him. His 5th base is a little late. Ooh, he decides to dash forward right there with the Hydras. Dashing in the storm. With low HP units in your base, it's not ideal. Showtime can dance here for a long time, but you know what? There's also a Zergling run-by, and I quite like the Ling run-by here. I think the Ling run-by may very well even force a recall. I wouldn't mind to see it. Showtime still does have reinforcements available, though. As long as he's not fully maxed, yep, he can just warp in troops for that. 8 probes die. A lot of Zerglings do as well. And SHIN did not quite get the entirety of the Zerg or of the Protoss army here to retreat. That was the ultimate goal. My concern here is that he needs to get a lot of Corruptors out, that he needs to also get a bunch of Vipers and all the rest of it. SHIN is kind of still stuck on this, like, early late game army, where Showtime is already on his, like, middle of the late game army. Does that make any sense? Neither player is quite yet at their ultimate force, but Showtime is certainly a step ahead as far as the tech goes. Corruptor numbers, though, are starting to look quite menacing. Showtime wants to be careful. Honestly, though, when you're playing 5 base versus 5 base, I think that will suit Showtime just fine. But he needs to get another base going here in a moment because of it. Ah, he decides to go for the one over here on the right. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. If you retreat right now, you need to even up the base count. +1 air weapons coming up. Cybercore in the natural expansion ended up dying a little while ago. How many lurkers are we on? 11 of them. Okay, there's a lot of lurkers. No Nidus network available either, right? And it all makes me a little bit... It's a little bit tricky. SHIN does not feel like he can actually build up all of the stuff right now. And at this point, you're basically... You're not quite up with your back against the wall, but it does start to feel that way. Showtime is playing this out very intelligently once again. You're hoping right now as a Zerg that Protoss overextends. Maybe engages too deep onto creep. But so far, Showtime does not really have that issue yet. Time warp here could be big. There we go. I mean, do you have enough? In the meantime, there's the counterattack again. Much like what we saw in the previous games. Those drones are going to drop very quickly, though. What about the Corruptors? The Corruptors are pre-split again. He's trying to mitigate as much of the damage here coming out of the Archons and the High Templar as possible, but the SkyToss army is going to disappear. In the meantime, though, Showtime is dealing an insane amount of damage on the other side of the map. Base is gone. It looks like maybe we can actually take down another one, too. An eye for an eye again. New Corruptors are coming up. Oh, Immortals trying to just hit whatever they can too. And there's that army, man. This unit composition can always be recalled back home. SHIN has very little mining actually happening. I mean, this base over here is still good, but the main and the natural are going to be running out very quickly, and that's pretty much it. He decides to walk the units back home, which I actually like better here. Yeah, walking them back home allows you to get a surround. Maybe he can go around this way with the army and then engage with the other half straight from the front. I think SHIN's army is kind of stuck. He's trying to see if maybe he can get into a better position. Revelation here will show Showtime exactly where that composition is located. Some reinforcing Zerg units do show up. Showtime says goodbye to that army real fast. What about the fight over here at the front? There's still a lot of Corruptors available, but the storms are good. Again, Corruptors are dead supply left over in the skies. And I think Showtime is in a much better spot now. Yep, GG gets cold. I think SHIN right there was processing the fight as well. He's like, wait a second, what do I actually have to come back home to right now? And it turns out you have very little. Protoss still has, well, like 2 fully mining mineral lines. They have the better army, they have the better upgrades, they've got the better tech. And as Zerg, you have nothing. Technically, you could still, like, cross your fingers and hope maybe your opponent, I don't know, doesn't pay attention for the next 5 minutes, and slowly you can crawl your way back into it. But Showtime right there was on the hunt for the final structures. Honestly, phenomenal series here by Showtime. Takes down one of the world's best Zerg players in straight-up macro games. And even though the first match was a loss, I think it was a little bit too passive there. It's not like he played poorly. It was just like that 9 Overlord drop that he didn't really expect. Sometimes those sort of strategies can catch you off guard, but Showtime across the board played some very high-level StarCraft.